Welcome back to another episode. Today I wanted to discuss the book Filterworld by Kyle Chayka. I really wanted to begin this by just giving a general overview of the book. I think it gives a lot of great information that could be very valuable to those that are interested in reducing or thinking more clearly about the content that they're interacting with, and maybe not doom scrolling or having a surface level interaction with content. One of the biggest pluses for me when reading the book was that it didn't provide immediate answers on how to escape the algorithm. While it does give some examples of techniques, such as a reduction in algorithmic interaction, i.e. reducing screen time, he doesn't take a hardline stance saying, this is the way you have to do it or you're doing it wrong. In his introduction, says, the aim of the book is not just to diagram Filterworld and discover its consequences, but to deconstruct it. In doing so, we can determine ways to escape it and resolve the omnipresent atmosphere of anxiety and ennui that algorithmic feeds have produced. In a way, he is providing the first stepping stone, that being a greater awareness of the algorithm and its hold on modern society, and guides the reader to think deeper and determine for themselves the best avenue forward. I, for example, began noticing more and more how the algorithm was being affected by the simple choices I made in picking an album on Spotify, a video on YouTube, or a movie on Max. Those direct choices, based on the algorithm, determined how the next couple days of my interaction with content would be molded, because the algorithms would pick up on those choices and they would flood my feed with almost near identical pieces of content, which in some ways is good because you're learning more about the content, but if it's something superfluous, do you really want your feed filled up with more? It's not to say that I never noticed this algorithmic shift in content before, but rather that after reading the book, I grew a sort of hyper awareness of its role and its effect on me and the content I was viewing. I've been feeling this growing anxiety of these omnipresent feeds of content that felt shallow, and figuring out how to both live in that world and try to manage it itself, I think is integral for moving forward. And by moving forward, I mean understanding the algorithms are still going to play an essential part in our lives, but it's how we handle them or circumvent them that we continue to learn and continue to develop. Chayka, for instance, in, I think it was chapter 4 or 5, presents the idea of going deeper. And it's something I talked about in my previous episode, but diving beyond the surface level of content, and maybe it's going down a rabbit hole of finding out an artist based on a single image or a song that you like and discovering the rest of their catalog. Devoting time outside of simply scrolling to learn about somebody or something, or the daisy chain effect. The daisy chain idea comes directly from chapter 6, where he is talking about the daisy chain effect of an indie radio show only playing covers and B-sides. One band playing a cover of one song leads to either the original or another band playing another cover. You just daisy chain through all this music and history, and you can learn along with the music the different methods of, say, singing, or how the music is being affected by the time period it's being recorded in. When I grew up, CDs were the main source of being able to interact with music, at least where I was from. I wasn't exposed to illegally downloading music like LimeWire or Napster until I was probably 10. And even with that, iTunes hadn't come out yet, so I wasn't really getting music digitally. But one thing that I always did from a young age was listen to an entire album. And I think that goes against the flow of the modern Spotify playlist, in that a lot of those playlists, as Chayka himself points out, are built on singles and short tracks and music that is easily digestible rather than taking in an artist's entire work as a whole. I think that's one of the reasons, for example, that I'm drawn to Kendrick Lamar's music. Rather than making singles for the most part, he makes albums, and they may not always be concept albums like Good Kid, Mad City, but they still have a theme or a general idea progressing the music forward throughout each track. Where this intersects with Filterworld is that I allow myself the opportunity to live with a piece of work potentially longer than the average audience member. There's this feeling inside of me that sitting with a piece of music or a film and really digesting it brings me happiness and joy, and gives me satisfaction knowing that I completed something. Take, for instance, how I got the name for this episode. It is a Niels Fromm song that I found the day I'm recording this. It's an 18-minute track that ebbs and flows through waves of near silence and moments of electronic harmony. It is the exact opposite type of track that would attract the masses and appear on top songs of Spotify lists, because it doesn't worry about immediate attention-grabbing tropes. In fact, the most attention-grabbing action of the song doesn't take place until about the 14th minute. That allows Fromm to build a world within the soundscape of the track and take the listener on a journey and embrace the bombastic moments when they do arrive. It, for me, is a musical example of digging deeper. In turn, it works well as a transitory piece of content because he and Olafur Arnalds were two of my first choices when capturing a soundscape to accompany my journey into long-term digital and physical curation that Chayka so enigmatically discusses in the final chapter of Filterworld. Specifically, Chayka writes, "The internet might have an overflow of curation, but it also doesn't have enough of it, in a sense of long-term stewardship, organization, and contextualization of content, all processes that have been outsourced to algorithms." As he points out, you don't get that individualized indie radio station playlist without someone exploring the music themselves. And if you're solely sitting on content just passing by in a doom-scrolling way, you are not getting the opportunity to interact with the content in a deep and meaningful way. An interaction that could lead to curation if given the chance to grow beyond a 30-second transaction. As we listen to music, gaze at a piece of art, or read a book, we glimpse a culmination of one's life work, condensed to a few minutes, a few brushstrokes, or a few words. The opportunity for growth germinates with a simple flip of the mind from mindless consumption to mindful engagement. All that is to say, I think Filterworld by Kyle Chayka is a really great book that a lot of people get a lot of good information from, and I think if you can look beyond the surface of algorithms and find those hidden gems, that can really expand your life. I'm going to leave it there for now. Let me know if you've had interactions with the algorithms that have led directly to recommendations for music or other books I should be into. Please let me know. Thank you.